everybody. Good evening. It's Monday, April 26th. I want to thank everybody for attending a special school board meeting here at the Robert Kroll Boardroom. We're going to call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. and we're going to start off with item 1, which is adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion from the board? Seeing none. Any comments from the public on the agenda?
See no comments online?
No, Mr. Cassiopo.
Oh, thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed? So motion carries. Item 2 is the flag salute, so please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to move on to item 3, which is public comment. This is for any items within our jurisdiction that are not already on the agenda. We asked for public comment on general public comment or during any items that we limit public comment to 3 minutes, and ideally not just repeat comments that we've heard before. But with that, is anybody here interested in making public comment? Yes, ma'am. Please come up to the podium.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to take a moment to talk about the mask mandate that is going to still be in effect in schools starting May 1st. And bring up something that my second grader said to me recently. She said...
And I'm sorry, I real feel bad, but could you just introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, my name is Michelle Stokes. I am parent to a kindergartner and a second grader. And my second grader said something recently. She said that masks are the real virus. That's how she feels in her school, and that's how the other students feel as well. And I think that it's time for us to really examine what that means. For them, masks mean that they can't connect to the other students. When they make jokes on the schoolyard, a joke, the only difference between a joke and a jibe is a smile on your face. And the way that she has been perceived in her new school is as a person that she's not, because the students can't see her face. They don't know her, they haven't met her before, and so all of her actions are viewed through just the words that she says. And as a second grader, she likes to have fun, and having fun means you have a smile on your face. When you don't have a smile, you're not having fun anymore. And it is extended to the classroom as well. If you talk to any teacher, they will say the same thing, that masks inhibit learning. They inhibit not only the social development between my daughter and her peers, but they also make it much more difficult for teachers to connect with students, for students to receive feedback, and to know that they're doing the right thing. Their behavior, what they're saying, and as far as their answering. If you can recall what it's like to be in any meeting, you look at the people's faces. If you're pitching your boss and he starts to frown, you know it's time to really switch what you're saying and try a different direction. Students don't have the privilege of 20, 30, 40, 50 years of living in life and knowing how to read those other cues, body language and whatnot. And so when teachers can't tell if the students are learning because they look at a classroom of blank faces, they don't know if they need to explain more, if the students are paying attention, if they're understanding the material. And so in that case, it is turning into a pandemic of sorts. And that has led to the difficulty in development intellectually, and also how the students develop themselves interiorly. Because when you're misunderstood, that makes you question yourself. Do I really know myself? If people don't understand me, that must mean I'm wrong. I'm doing something wrong. And for young children, my second grader, she's lost all sense of self. And also the how to move forward in her education. And as far as the power that masks have over not just the children, but the teachers themselves is just a fact as of now, because teachers can't say, well, I don't want masks in my classroom. well, I mean, they can say it, but they'll be told, well, that's what we do. You can either like it or get lost. Administrators feel the same way. If you talk to a principal, then they'll say, well, I don't think masks are good. I see how bad they are. The teachers don't like them. It's bad for the students, but what can I do? I don't want to get shut down.
Hey, Michelle, I apologize, but we've exceeded 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
If you have any other additional comments, though, we're happy to receive them. You can prepare them and submit them to the district, and we can put them into the
Can I
record.
say just one last thing?
Sure.
Okay, this is the comment from my kindergartner. She said, I like my mask because it hides my face. And I think that that is true for all of us, and that it's time to really understand what masks are doing, how we're being controlled by them, and to take a stand and stop dividing the community by rethinking how we accept the mask mandate as just an order from on high. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comment in the room? Seeing none. Any online?
Yes, we have one public comment from Bridget. Bridget, you are unmuted. Please state your name for the record and spell your name, please.
Bridget, I'm not sure if you're trying to speak, but we can't hear you. And just a reminder, this is general public comment and not for anything on the agenda.
Oh, okay. I was coming to specifically for something on the agenda.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
And we're going to get there.
Okay.
Any other general public comment?
See no other public comment online?
Thank you. Renee?
No, Mr. Cassiopo, my comment pertains to the item on the agenda.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and close public comments, general public comment. And now we're going to move on to item 4, which is presentation, discussion, and possible action to open CCSD schools to all pre-K through 12th grade students to attend school in person 5 days per week, Monday through Friday, for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year, effective May 3rd, 2001. And this is for possible action. And we're going to start off with an introduction of this topic from Superintendent Stokes.
Thank you, President Cassiopo, members of the board, and welcome to our guests who are here with us in person and also those who might be listening online. It is a well-stated fact already that this school year has been like no other and has been full of twists and turns and stops and starts and changes. When Governor Sisolak made his most recent presentation that local governments, particularly school districts, would have the right to make the mitigation measures instead of state government on May 1st, it caused a number of things to come to the forefront. One is that by making that statement, it was easy to see that there was only 1 month of school left when between May 1, obviously, and June 1. And so this due diligence needed to occur, as with other changes that the governor has made during the school year, to consider whether or not to advance what Carson City School District was doing in light of this new information. So in order to allow this due diligence to take place, we needed to discuss as a group of trustees like we have at other times during the school year, and also have an opportunity for our citizenry to touch bases with us, to let us know what they're thinking, to have an opportunity to listen to their concerns, things that they are interested in, especially from a school perspective and how it applies to their students, to their home life and all aspects of living. Knowing that any change to a school day and week like what has traditionally we have become accustomed to, there would be potential modifications to transportation, nutrition, and just in general, the student day, the student operational day. The most recent change that was made came about when the governor said that our schools could be open to 75% capacity. And so by including our 7th and 8th grade students, we were able to provide that 75% capacity in our school districts from the pre-K grades through 7th grade. However, the hybrid schedule and the use of the block schedule at our high school, at Carson High School, I should say, really challenged us being able to bring 75% of the students back. So at the time, the board listened to the discussion and agreed that it was in the best interest of our students to leave the hybrid model in place, and we carried forward. I don't think any of us expected this most recent change of allowing school districts to have the mitigation measures handed back to us prior to the 1st of June, which is what's going on with the other local governments. So kind of an interesting shift there, I guess, in thinking. But now that we have been given this opportunity to consider 100% occupancy in our buildings, we are faced with considering what would be the pros and the cons, really, of for 1 month, bringing our students back to a 5-day per week school week. And over the course of the week since we have posted this agenda for tonight's meeting, I've just tried to put together the numbers associated with the public comment that we've received in my office. And so very briefly, I'd just like to draw your attention to this one slide, and we'll leave it up so as the board has an opportunity to ask questions and to discuss the pros and the cons of considering going back to school 5 days in a school week. You can see what the response has been from both parents, staff, and also students. And as part of the presentation, I have asked, and as I've had a chance to discuss this idea with President Cassiopo and also Vice President Varner, we thought that it would be a good idea to provide some samples of our public comment, both in opposition and in favor in these various groups, so that folks who wanted to add their own ideas or thoughts to the public comment could know some of the things that have been stated, so we'd have some guidance as we move forward in our discussion tonight. This is an item that can have action taken on it. So for the benefit of the board here tonight, based on how you feel the discussion is going and the input that we receive from citizens and certainly testimony from me, we do need to give a clear signal to the community so that there's no confusion as to what is the outcome. I do want to state for the record, though, that this is not a done deal. As I've heard from some, this is an opportunity for us to discuss and consider the negatives and the positives about coming back to school in a full-time manner for just 1 month. So with that, Mr. President, if you would allow, I would ask that Renee Cortez, our board executive assistant, read some of the, a sampling of the public comments. And I would also say that it's not necessarily our intent here tonight to read all nearly 100 public comments tonight, but we believe we can lump these public comments into groups, as I have shown here on this slide. We do want people to feel like they've been heard and that their votes have been counted. And all of the statements that have been submitted in writing will be a part of this meeting's record, and they will exist with the minutes from this meeting. And so just take that into consideration if you're waiting to make a presentation through public comment this evening. We just encourage you to essentially state your brief opposition or in favor statements without having a longer meeting than necessary through public comment and restating things that may have already been said. Mr. President, members of the board, do you have any questions for me in trying to start this conversation?
You know, Richard, I would just add, not a question, I would just add that, to reiterate what you said, we want to hear from everybody, and we don't want anybody to think that we are handpicking comments, or we don't want to hear what everybody has to say, but I just want people to keep in mind, we've received so far, and the tally keeps coming, 91 written comments electronically, plus we're going to have people speaking to us. The 91 comments alone, if we give everybody 3 minutes, is going to take us 4.5 hours to get through. So it's a considerable amount of comments, and we're trying to be respectful to everybody's time. And part of the everybody are the teachers and the staff who, you know, are going to be at work early in the morning and may not have the benefit to being up till 10, 11, 12 o'clock tonight to get through this meeting. So we're trying to find a happy medium that satisfies everybody.
Just one more comment, Joe, that I'd like to make sure that is in the record is that we were provided all of, in our packets, and they're in the public record, all of the comments that were emailed in by noon on Friday, and then we came here a little bit before the meeting and we were provided additional comments. So all of them are in the record. We've all had the opportunity to read them. And so I just want the public to know that everything that we've received in public comment has been read and has the opportunity to be read too.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr.
Seeing
President,
none, Richard, I can.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
if I may, just so your record's clear and the board is all aware, the most recent manual on the open meeting law published by the Attorney General's office allows a board to limit reasonably public comment that it receives to the extent that the comment is repetitious. And so I have specifically advised the board and staff, based on my review of the law, that you will be within the confines of the open meeting law to do what you said, take a sampling, and then, as Mr. Stokes has done, compile the remainder for presentation so that everyone's vote is heard, but the same or repetitious comment isn't restated on the record time and again.
Great, thank you for the clarification.
Can I make one quick point as a member of the public?
We're gonna,
Just in regards to the comments that you received. According to the website, there was no indication that a public could attend. I called to make sure and found out at the very last minute.
We're gonna-
that they could come. And
when we have public comment, we're gonna have everybody come up to the mic.
sure,
So I'll actually address that when I open it up to public comment, but I appreciate that. Are we ready for Renee?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Renee, yeah, please, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Cassiopo. The first comment is received from the Ormsby County Education Association. And as the educators, they represent the educators in Carson City, including teachers and other licensed education professionals. In our history, there's been a few more challenging times in the past year with COVID-19 crisis. After school buildings were ordered closed last spring, OCEA members quickly responded with classroom teachers engaging their students in distance education and our other licensed professional staff providing support through a variety of means. This semester, our members are responding in a diversity of ways dependent upon their job assignment, with some members juggling full in-person learning, hybrid, and distance education. This school year has been one of constant change in order to do what is best for students as well as staff. Flexibility has been the name of our game, and staff and students have shown to be true champions. As the board considers another change, especially to having students back 5 days a week, OCEA asks that you keep in mind that for some, this will be the third or fourth change. This change will affect the remaining 22 days of school and 4 Mondays. OCEA asks that the board consider consistency over flexibility and continue with the 4 days per week with so little of the year remaining. OCEA asks that the board take into account the sizable number of teachers at the secondary level who are on a preparation period buyout. These teachers gave up their preparation period for additional pay, but with the comfort of knowing that they would have each Monday available to plan for their classes, grade student work, make parent contact, etc. Returning to a 5-day week would place an additional burden on these members with 22 days remaining in the year. OCEA asks that the board take into account the teachers who are high flex, those teaching both remote and in-seat students. These teachers already carry a heavy and demanding workload as they juggle teaching some students at home while managing a classroom with students. While they are faring admirably now, they do so with Mondays to plan and post digital assignments for remote learning students and make copies and prepare for in-seat students. Taking away this valuable planning time for these already overburdened teachers would cause mental strain and quality of education to diminish since they would have less time to plan and more in-seat time. There are concerns from various stakeholders, such as special education as an example, where meetings have already been scheduled with parents for items such as IEPs. Rescheduling has the potential to create hardships throughout. OCEA has concerns that families and students have made arrangements based upon the 4-day week. By returning to 5 days a week to gain 4 additional days, the board would be placing hardships upon all our stakeholders. Thank you. These comments are from several high school students who are not in favor and they'd like to stay on the hybrid schedule. This was from a student, he's a senior at Carson High School as well as a sophomore in college due to the Jump Start program. As of right now, I only have one class at Carson High. This class would normally be held every day since it is my AB 55 class, but due to the hybrid schedule, the class is only on Wednesdays and Fridays. Now, if the schedule would go to full-time in person, I would not be able to attend my high school class for most of the week because of the classes I have scheduled at WNC, as well as a work schedule I have created depending on the hybrid schedule. So I would appreciate it if the Carson City School District would stay in the hybrid schedule that has been in for a significant majority of the school year. The next comment is from Morgan Craighill. Morgan is a current senior at Carson High and wanted to address the subject of completely opening up school. In my opinion, being a current student at Carson High is that I believe we should not be opening back. As someone who works to not only help support their family, but to save for college, this would force me to work less and completely change my schedule for only a month. Also, I'm part of the Jump Start first-year class, as well as taking an extra college class at Carson High School. With this high load, I have already adapted coming to school, doing homework, participating in extracurricular activities, and working in the current schedule. So to have the whole schedule being changed on me for only 1 month, I would feel cause great stress upon students who may have a similar situation as me. Yeah, I do feel that going back to school like the old schedule before COVID hit would be a wonderful idea to bring back normalcy. However, switching the schedule last minute would cause chaos along with even more pressure than what the students and teachers are already under. I simply state that going back to the old schedule or even a modified version of the old schedule will be unproductive to do during the very last month that students are in school. The next comment, this is from Connor Lampert, who's a senior at Carson High. I do not think going back full-time is the best thing to do with there only being 1 month left in school. I've committed to a job and going back full-time would potentially get me fired, and this just does not work for me. I have also heard many other seniors and some juniors say the same thing. Going back full-time would add stress to students that have more advanced classes being accustomed to our current schedule and having to change right as finals hit. I do not think returning next year full-time for students would be a good idea, not this year. Please do not make us return back full-time. People's jobs are at stake and the school year is almost over. I have one comment here from a high school student that is in favor. This is from Maddox Sweet, and she would like to go back 4 days a week instead of 5. 4 days a week for students that only have been going 2 days a week will be very hard for them to comprehend and need a day to get their stuff together and get all homework done. Monday morning is a day anyone would say is nice and relaxing and can help students get ready for the week. This comment is from middle school students that are not in favor. This is from Melania Garcia, an Eagle Valley Middle School 8th grade student. They've just finished their SBAC testing, and after a very long, tiresome, and stressful week, everyone is exhausted. She wanted to add her suggestion and opinion about coming back to school on Mondays, and she disagrees with that. For starters, Mondays count as teachers and students catch-up days. Teachers prep classes, grade work, and plan out assignments, whereas students get time to catch up on missing work and bringing up grades. Students alongside teachers really enjoy Mondays being off as it's less stressful and a comforting day to catch up and relax after the hard work and prepare for the long weeks ahead. Another point I'd like to make is mental health. A lot of us are very exhausted and extremely agitated from the testing and a strange schedule changes and issues at home. A lot of students and even some teachers are currently having struggles with family, babysitting, money, etc. Having Mondays off is a huge relief for lots of students and teachers as they can have the extra time spending with family and preparing for the next day. Now, one last and final point I'd like to mention is the issues with COVID. Bringing us back another day could potentially be a potential COVID risk. Combining our cohorts has already been a risky move since COVID cases at school have gone up. The rumblings in the halls and squishing of students is stressful enough for 4 days, but to add another would be a disaster. Students are likely having a hard time 4 days a week with masks and social distancing, and adding another would be torture. I hope that you take this into consideration before making any changes. This comment is from Noah Hutchison. Let's see, bringing students back, respectfully disagree with that idea. And some of the reasons listed, only 4 days would be added. Jobs and daycare, some of us work on jobs and take care of our siblings. Mondays help students and teachers prepare for Tuesday and the rest of the week. We had to deal with too many changes this year, leave it alone. More disruption to our sleep. Some use Mondays to catch up on work or rest from working all weekend without sacrificing family time. We will miss the Zoom meetings with our homeroom teacher. At Eagle Valley Middle School, 10 teachers gave up their prep to teach another class due to class sizes, and they need Mondays to prep and grade. Some janitors use Mondays to clean and catch up on their job. If this decision were being made in January, it would make more sense. But in this late of the school year, the decision would be more disruption than a benefit. This comment is from parents not in favor. As a mother of 4 children, grades 11, 6, 4, and kindergarten, very concerned with how long it takes for children to readjust when something in their norm changes. In regards to going back to full 5 days a week school schedule at this time with barely a month left of classes, I feel that it would be in the students' and staff's best interest to continue with our 4 days a week in-person routine for the remainder of the school year, if not at least partly into next school year as well. Not only has this given our family more time together and more opportunities to work on school items with our children, but it has also become a day where we schedule doctor visits and other appointments to avoid missing school, as well as a good time for our kids to catch up on any work they're behind on for us and to add enriching activities otherwise not available during a 5-day school week. Changing this now, with so little time left in the school year, will not only disrupt our children and our family, but other families and children within our Carson City community as well. adding extra stress to students as well as staff in an already very unstable, inconsistent, and disrupted time. Thank you for taking the time into the consideration regarding the choice the board will make on Tuesday night about bringing students back 5 days a week. This comment is from Mr. and Mrs. Darren Sloan. They have a son who's a 9th grade student at Carson High School and respectfully request that you not begin full-time learning for the last month of school. I do believe, like so many families, we have an established routine this school year, and to have it completely disrupted for the last 4 weeks is not ideal. We also, like so many other families, watch as cases of COVID climb in younger populations who are not eligible for vaccines. As we are now in the final stretch of this school year, I would ask for you to please let this year finish as is. Let us get our children ready to start full-time in the fall, but for now, stay in the schedule we have all fought so hard to establish these 8 months. I will tell you, our experience with our son's teachers have been nothing short of exceptional, and I know all of you have done an amazing job teaching our children in this most unpredictable year. You are all owed our gratitude, and we appreciate in grace in which you have maneuvered throughout the year. This comment is from the Ovard family. They're the parents of 3 students, 1 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school. Please do not change the school schedule to full-time beginning May 3rd. And they've listed several points. The pandemic is not over. COVID cases are rising now, and our students are not vaccinated. Teachers and working parents have arranged their schedules for the last month of school, including extracurricular activities. The schedule change is inconvenient and would most likely not change scholastic outcomes, considering it's the last month of school. Let's ride out this school year and start fresh next year once COVID is under control. And this comment is from Heidi Remick, who is in support. A parent of 2 students at Mark Twain, write in support of school opening 5 days a week until the end of the year. I know there's only a month left of school, so some may ask, what's the point? But for working parents like me, being able to send the kids back to school full-time may be the difference between keeping a job and losing one. The federal law that made employers give time off to child care due to COVID closures expired on December 31st, and with it, parents lost job security if we sacrifice work time to stay home with children. Now that more people are fully vaccinated and businesses and governments are reopening, employers are eager to get workplaces back to normal, and out of patience with parents who need to stay home because schools are not open. Well, I was very sympathetic to the concerns of teachers returning to work in the fall with no vaccines and only a wing and a prayer to enforce social distancing and hand hygiene among children. The fears that school would return into super spreader hotbeds had thankfully not panned out, and opening schools 5 days a week is not more dangerous than being open 4. That's all I have, Mr. Casiopo, of the comments at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Richard, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Probably for me, one of the issues that is of importance is coming down to the wire of this school year, and most importantly, providing enough time and opportunities for students who, for whatever reason, are possibly in a place where they could fail a class. They may not qualify for graduation if they don't have enough credits. I know that there are not many days left should we change the school schedule. So regardless of the outcome tonight, I would make a plea to any student or family who believes their child may be in danger of not receiving credit for any particular class to contact your school's guidance counselor, any trusted adult, anyone that you feel that you have a a relationship with, just to make sure that we help you get all the credits that are due to you, if it's possible. So that's one place where I see a benefit by having all of our students back in school, especially at the high school level. Obviously, the number of responses that we've seen to this particular proposal has been overwhelmingly in opposition. So I think that has to carry some measure as we consider and as we discuss tonight. So with that, Mr. President, I am here as are members of my staff to help answer questions about potentially returning 5 days a week, or to help respond as needed to some of the questions that have been raised by citizens, and certainly that could be raised by you as well.
Thank you, Richard. We're going to open this up to the board, but maybe I'll start by just in terms of questions. And, you know, you might get the same questions, but some of what I heard is, while I think everybody agrees that if the timing was right and all other things considered, we could get students back to school, it'd be great to get them back into our schools. I think that's where they're going to get the best education they can get. But given the reality of other constraints and whatnot, it's like you had mentioned, there's pros and cons to whatever decision we make. Some of the input I received, I think we've all read, addressed items like grant funding, current operations, things like that. So I think it's more than, you know, hey, I want to go back to school, hey, I don't want to go back to school. There's truly operational impacts that are going to have an effect on any decision we make. And so I don't know if you're prepared, if you could just touch on a couple of those.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. As you know, when the governor made it possible for us to occupy schools at 75%, the limits for social distancing on our school buses was also increased to 66%. So if indeed the schools are given back the ability to modify that number and not rely on what the state has said, then we would use our transportation system to its fullest capacity. So there again, people who are concerned about social distancing would have to know that we would be putting more students on buses. The same thing would be the same consideration would be for our nutrition services program. So right now we have our students and we have our schedules established in such a way that students are social distanced at least 3 feet while they're in our cafeterias. We may see some modification there if we were to go back to 5 days per week. And so again, the limitations on social distancing would be, I guess, increased, if I've said that right. And so that's certainly something to be concerned about. And then the other obvious pieces are just the daily operational conditions, because it is true, we do have staff members who have, at our last change, taken on additional teaching requirements and responsibilities. This move would have an impact on our ability to place substitute teachers in the classroom. There would be an impact on that group of employees. And so there are some challenges that we would have to overcome. And again, like other changes we've made in the school year, it would be, do these potential changes have enough of a benefit to exceed some of the difficulties?
Thank you. Let me open it up to the board. Any questions or comments for Superintendent Stokes? Richard.
I have 2 comments, if I may. First of all, I want to thank all the staff parents, students, who actually took the time to write us, to let us know their thoughts and concerns about this matter. I also believe with as many students that responded, it really gave them an opportunity to reach out to the board, staff, administration, and hopefully they'll find that the voices count. So that gave them the opportunity to express their concerns about this matter. So I wanted to thank them. And that's all I have to say right.
Thank you. Mike?
You know, I'll just say that I'm all in favor for getting these kids back in school. And if this change had come about at the beginning of this quarter, you know, even a month ago, I think it would have been reasonable. But when you think about life in a school, right now our principals are finishing up state mandated testing, which they're required to do. They're finishing up their SPP plans for this year and gearing up to write plans for next year. They're getting ready to place kids in new classrooms. And so to add this change on to what has already been established for a long time is going to upend all of their practices and plans. When you make a change like this, it's also going to disrupt the flow of the school day. And so by the time the kids and the teachers and the administrators, the parents get used to these changes, the year's going to be over. I just don't know that this much disruption at this point in the year is going to be worthwhile. But saying that, I mean, when I read these things from parents, I agree with them. These kids need to be in school. And I mean, I would tell our teachers and staff members to expect that next year, you know, they're going to be 5-day school weeks. That's important. These kids need to be in school. I think that it's a matter of timing at this point, and I just don't think that our schools have the adequate time to really make those changes and then sustain anything. You know what I mean? It's almost like we're just disrupting everything to disrupt things at this point.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else on the board? Sorry, who's that, Richard or Laurel?
I was just going to say,
Go ahead.
I agree with Trustee Walker. I think it's probably too late in the school year to make such a drastic change. I'm also in favor of getting kids back in school 5 days a week. And like Trustee Walker said, I think people should plan on returning to a standard school schedule starting in August, barring any unforeseen circumstances. I think that'd be the plan, is to get everybody back in school 5 days a week.
Thank you, Richard. Laurel?
I agree with Trustee Walker's comments. I've always wanted to get as many kids in school as we can, and to do it safely. And I have 2 high schoolers and a middle schooler and an elementary kid right now. And this has been a year of a lot of stuff going on. I know that my elementary student, he's a 5th grader, benefited immensely by going to 4 days in school. And I know that my 6th grader has benefited by going. So I can see that. At the same time, I have a senior who will be finished with AP classes and be doing AP testing the 1st and 2nd week of May. So he won't have a normal schedule when he's doing those testing. And then he's got that little bit of downtime, which he's spent a lot of time working on. And I have a sophomore who says, well, I could see my friends more if we were back at school. And to be honest, I don't have anything else to do, which I can see that that's important too, because there's the kids that really miss that social, and I don't say that lightly, because I believe that socialization is very important for that age. And I do know the kids have missed out on a lot of that. I guess my question is, are we just talking 5 days for everyone, or is there anything on this that we're considering with 4 days at the high school? Or is it's not written in the agenda that way?
The, I went crazy there. I took my mask
I know.
off. Sorry.
Sorry.
Surprise, it's me.
So that's one of my questions. Is that something that we are,
The agenda topic is the possibility of returning to school 5 days per week, but there's nothing saying we can't consider something else.
okay,
But we have the option
of,
to open up our doors and bring everybody back. So we're
And-
discussing that, but everything within reason is on the table.
and this is often, I don't feel like when I come to a meeting, I kind of have an idea. I can see both sides to this. I do have concerns with it's really only 4 weeks of school. And I have concerns with the recent outbreak at Bishop Manogue, where they've had, because I'd hate to bring back all the high schoolers and then have to go remote for 10 days or 2 weeks when there's only the 4 left. That has me concerned. I know how important some of the extracurricular activities that the kids are involved in is, and if you limit some of the distancing that they're able to do, that could be problematic for them. So I wish this had been something we'd had more control over making decisions with a month ago, 2 months ago. But I do see that. Anyway, I think that's where I'm at right now with comments. I'll probably come up with more as we discuss.
Okay. Sorry, Don, you're looking over here. Did you have anything?
I agree with my colleagues that I think we leave Mondays alone. However, I would be in favor if we could amend the motion and bring the high schoolers back 4 days a week.
Lupe?
So I am concerned, especially for the seniors, that may be at risk of not being able to graduate. And some of the comments that I saw involved the work as a rationale. And so I am concerned about those students that are choosing to work versus finishing up their school year strong.
Okay, thank you. Richard? Back to Superintendent Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one thing for your consideration. And I agree with you, Trustee Carini, that having enough time to really put all of these pieces into place would have been best. One of the reasons that we struggled with putting our high schoolers back to school more days and out of the hybrid plan was the fact that we would have had to change a large number of students' schedules in order to do any kind of a 4-day schedule. And so really the high school condition requires 5 days for that block schedule to work the way it's intended to work. And so it would create more difficulties for us to take the high school students and put them in a 4-day schedule than to leave them in the hybrid schedule at this point. And then with regard to what Trustee Ramirez has said, we have seen many more students this year electing to work. Because they've had 2 days on campus, essentially, they've had more time at home. And if they weren't obligated at home, they've gone looking for jobs. And many have been very successful and are providing a significant service to their employers. Now, I still believe that our number one priority, our prime objective, is to make sure that we train and help our students get the education that they need. That's our prime objective. But I do know that this has been very important. The part that has been very important to some of the students that you heard tonight is that some have actually moved out on their own. Some are actually living in apartments that they're paying for. And so this financing this year in this really weird time is quite critical to them as individuals. So it has created these unusual conditions that we haven't had to face in the past. And, but I do understand your concern in wanting our students to be able to view their education as a prime condition, maybe in advance of the many years that they'll have in their adult life yet to work.
Thank you. Laurel? And then Dawn.
Working with my new microphone button that works better. Does the high school, I know that my son who's taking AP classes has gone into school, like he went into school today to do some more work with AP government, and he's gone in on his non-cohort day to catch his AP Chem class. Are the students that have been struggling, have they been identified, and do they have the opportunity to come back? If I don't want any kids, I want as many kids to pass classes as we can at the high school, and obviously that's a priority. Has the high school gone after and located those kids that are doing it, and can they come back 4 days a week? Because I think that we had some flexibility when we kept them in the hybrid. Is that something that can be offered to them?
Thank you, Trustee Crossman. Excellent point. I think that most of you will recall that at the beginning of the second semester, we went through the academics of our high school students. We identified those and brought back nearly 200 out of a remote learning system only to some on-campus experience, so that we were able to try to reduce the number of students that were failing in their classes. So yes, the short answer is we do have the capacity and have done the research to see which students are in academic distress, that's a good word. And we can also provide extra time. And of course, that is left up to our teachers to be able to find the time to bring those students in. But certainly that can be done in a variety of ways, even if it's before or after school. And so we thank our teachers for their flexibility and willingness to help our students.
Dawn, and then Mike.
I'm trying to understand, I'm probably not thinking of this correctly. What you said, if we go to 4 days in the high school or 5, is it not the same amount of students each day?
So the students, the block schedule, maybe that's the best way to start. The block schedule takes a 10-day cycle, essentially, to work through all the classes that are available. And so if we go 4 days, then that cycle of 10 days is challenged, and it requires nearly every student to have a new schedule, which then begs to ask the question, does that make sense? Because I'm in a classroom or a cohort with students that I know, I'm with a teacher that I know, I have a certain stride in my classes, I know what's going on, and so now to require students to change with only a month before finals and all of those other things really would be a difficult condition for our students.
Okay. I guess I was thinking you have now Tuesday and Wednesday A days, Thursday, Friday B days. Would you not just keep it the same, and now you just have the rest of the kids back that were online? Some of the teachers, my son's a junior, some of the teachers are actually on Zoom, so the kids are on Zoom during that time. Would you not be able to just keep the schedule the same and bring those kids back, or would there be too many in a classroom? Or
Mrs. Fuson, do you want to add to our conversation here? Mrs. Fuson being her recent position as principal and being probably more familiar with the everyday workings of the block schedule. I think part of the issue is the fact that there are 7 periods per day.
I think part of the confusion is when we were looking at doing 66% occupancy or 75% occupancy, in order to do 3/4 of the student body, then it would take a 10-day rotation. I do think, after speaking to Principal Chambers, that in essence, it would take a schedule change in terms of their bell schedule, but not necessarily student changes in terms of the classes that they have. So I think the easiest way to accommodate that would be what you're saying, Trustee Greenie, just to do, right now it's Monday is a full period schedule, which is remote. And then Tuesday and Wednesday are A days, and Thursday, Friday are B days. So they would end up rotating that and going A, B, A, B. More than likely, if the students come back, they could go A day, and then B day, B day. It would just be an odd, I guess, sense of learning for students, because they'd be repeating not the same material in the same class, but they would be going to, for instance, their A1 class 2 days in a row, and then the next 2 days their B2. I think we could work it out, but when we were looking at the 75% occupancy, when we worked out our scenarios there, it would have literally taken 10 days to get the rotation going. And that's why that particular schedule didn't work. But I think we could accommodate something as to what you're saying.
Right. I guess you could go A, B, but why change it now? They're used to just
Correct.
doing A, B, B.
The most important thing is that in order to do, to bring them back 4 days, is that it would not require students to have schedule changes with teachers. And that's the big part, because again, with the 75% occupancy, in order to have small enough class sizes, then it would have taken rescheduling several of the students, not all of them, several of the students to accommodate the smaller class sizes and additional prep buyouts, et cetera. So in this particular case, like I said, you're correct. If we wanted to just bring kids back as it is and say, okay, you're going to go 2 A days in a row, 2 B days in a row, we could make
Do it
that
the
occur.
last 4 weeks, and I think it would help. I think it would help the academics. I think just get these kids back.
Sasha, I have no doubt that more time in the classroom is going to help these kids. What I'm wondering is, while you say, hey, we could do this, the reality of if I'm a teacher and I'm teaching some level of math or multiple levels of math, how's that going to impact me? I mean, I'm guessing I've prepared lesson plans. I've probably got the rest of my semester lined out. I know what I'm doing. Am I now going to have to rewrite lesson plans, kind of, if you will, toss or modify what I've done before? What kind of impact does that have to me as a teacher?
I think on teachers, it would have a pretty decent impact with that. In other words, there's quite a bit of difference in terms of planning for remote instruction versus in-seat instruction. And our teachers have put a lot of time and effort into retooling, if you will, the curriculum to look at what are the mastery standards that students need to know and be able to do, what can be carved out of the curriculum, if you will, as not one of the power standards that a student needs to know and be able to do for the following year. So what they're currently teaching this year, which is, although standards-based, is different likely than what you would have seen in the classroom last year, because they've had to make those shifts and they've had to make those changes to make a successful transition for students to learn in a remote environment. So at this point in time, President Cacioppo, I would agree with you, is that, we're talking about 4 weeks of school. And I would say the vast majority of our teachers have lined that out and paced it such that the students will have been exposed to what they needed to be exposed to prior to the end of the year. We bring them back in seat, which is always ideal in terms of increasing your face-to-face instruction, but it would take retooling or rescheduling, I think repacing of materials for teachers. So that will add workload to them. I think part of the concern, really, what we're hearing from our students is again, many of them have life type activities that they've scheduled around their current existence with their hybrid schedules. So I think that's the part that is a challenge in my mind, is that if I am a student who has a job and my work puts out my work schedule for 2 weeks in advance, we make a change for them. We're going to have several students that are having to reach out and try to get new schedules in the next couple of weeks. And of course, I don't think work should ever trump school, but it is a reality of our year. And I think that's why we see so many students, for instance, on our tallies up there that have called in opposition. I personally am very, very torn. I think always the best situation is to always have our kids in seat in front of our teachers 5 days a week. We know our teachers are super important. We know more now than we ever have how important our teachers are on student academic success. That being said, we have 1 month of school, and I don't know what kind of shifts and changes that would make on all hands. I know teachers would, again, have to repace. They would have to retool what they're doing. They'd have to shift their plans for the last month. I know for our students, they would have to, like I said, shift work schedules, shift possibly babysitting schedules for siblings or relatives. And I think that's the part that, without knowing that, concerns me. And unfortunately, at this point in time, we don't really have the luxury of being able to accurately survey our folks to get that feedback, to make a good decision in an amount of time that would make sense. That just all takes time, as you all know. So that's kind of what my thought is. But to get back to the original question, in the most simplistic of terms, could we make it happen? Yes, we could. I don't know if it'll be beneficial.
Mike.
Just a couple points on that. You know, if we did need schedule changes, that takes significant amount of time from a counselor. You know, typically our schools use the majority of the summer to accommodate scheduling a school that large. So that's one thing to consider if we did have those changes. But I think that when you're talking about students with work, you know, when it comes to poverty, that's something people are prideful about. They don't advertise it. And what we don't know is how many of those students are working because they have to help their family pay the bills. And, you know, there could be a significant number of these families who are counting on that income. And so if we make a change without that data to figure out that percentage, we're really setting up a choice. Do we have food and pay rent, or do you go to high school for a month? And I'm not sure where, you know, that boat would come down with the family. So I think that we just have to be sensitive. These are really unprecedented times, and there are people who are really hurting right now, and we might not realize it, but that doesn't mean it's not happening.
Appreciate it. Richard.
I also worry, as you read through these statements that the students sent in, several of them stated that they may not be able to return to school or elect not to return to school. And I wonder if they, you know, if we'd set them up to fail and if they elected not to come back. So I think that's a concern we have to keep in mind too.
One thing, and we will be coming to make a presentation to the board, I believe it is later in May, but about our summer programming. And so we are right now working on summer programming with all of our schools. We will have a 13-day summer session available at the elementary level that will go for 4 hours a day, that will work on filling those learning holes for English language arts and mathematics. And we are working on pretty robust summer planning, 16 days for our secondary students. So I want you to know that we do acknowledge that our students are going to need some extended learning time. And as you were asking Mr. Stokes about, have we been able to identify those students who really are most in need of that? We absolutely have. We've been looking at student MAP scores compared to last year and between our winter and now spring MAP to look at students who have those learning gaps, students who've not made the amount of academic progress as we would have anticipated. Obviously, most of our students have some a little bit lower MAP scores, I'd say, as you would in a typical year, but actually our loss of learning hasn't been as widespread as we had anticipated. So we want to make sure that we can, again, help our students. So we will have that extended learning time offered in the summer. That being said, versus if you're looking at an elementary or a middle school student and you're talking about 4 days, we'll be able to recoup that time in the summer plus more. And again, very intensive programming really to fill in those blanks. So where did the students, where are they as a whole, and then what learning gaps do they have? So that's in the planning, that's in the works, and we're confident we're going to be able to help our students get back to where they need to be, or at least to put them on a pretty good footing for starting next school year.
Tasha, could I just say thank you, because that was my original question when I raised my hand, and I got so into the conversation that I forgot, so thank you.
Lupe, did you have something?
Yes, Tasha, so the summer session, would that be optional or will that be required for those students that are lacking credits?
So that is an excellent question, Trustee Ramirez. We can't make summer programming mandatory, but what we have done is we are targeting students that are being invited and families. So the schools are doing that personal outreach to those families to say, based on your assessment scores that we have, we would like you to come and participate in summer programming with us so that we can fill in these learning gaps, versus it just being an open, if you're interested, come and sign up kind of a concept. So we're being more strategic about it than that to ensure that our families at least have the opportunity and the knowledge that their student was recommended for that program.
Yeah, I'll just add to it that, and we've said it already before, our prime objective is educating our students. We all take that serious, not just as a board, but I know Superintendent Stokes and Tasha, you, and everybody at the school. And we have everybody working very hard. You know, the custodians are using Mondays to do the extra, you know, not that they're only using Mondays, but they're using that time to make sure the classrooms are clean, safe, sanitized. We have teachers that have built in the operation of their classroom. They're using Monday strategically to not just do remote teaching, but to plan lessons, to look at data and assess. I was told one of our schools has a grant, and because of the way the schedule is, they've built adhering to the grant. You know, grants are, it's free money, but money's never free. There's things you have to do. And they're occupying some of that Monday time and making sure they're adhering to the grant. So if we were, you know, if we were in April 1st, or in April, if the governor said, hey, April 1st, I'm going to hand over control to you, it'd be a different conversation for me than it is now. We're late in the school year. I feel good in hearing that a summer program, we can make up the ground that if we choose not to go forward with the change that, you know, we would be missing based on the 4 days. So summer school could fill that gap. So I think there's things that are in place that, to me, sound promising. But when I look at all the issues associated with this, not just the academics, we are pretty late in the game, and it's going to disrupt a lot of people. It's going to have huge impacts to some of these people. And I know there's people out there listening going, we don't care. Get these kids back in school. You have to educate them. And I agree with them, but we've got to weigh all the factors here as a board. And when I read all the emails that were sent to us and I listen to public comment, and I know we're going to hear more public comments, the vast majority of what I'm hearing are people that are giving reasons why they'd like the schedule to be the same that are valid. There's valid reasons that are impacting this. So it's a tough decision, but it's one we are as a board taking very serious, and we're not entering it to this lightly. Richard had said, you know, this wasn't a preconceived notion. This wasn't a done deal before the meeting. This is our first chance to get together and talk about this as a board and get all the public input we've received. So I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody's input. We're all coming at it from a different direction. There really is no right answer, unfortunately. We're making the best out of a not great situation given COVID and everything. Mike, go ahead.
Just to build on what you were saying, I think that the plan we have is a plan that we worked diligently with our community. And so we had stakeholders in all different groups that came up with this plan. And so it's not like this is something that we just threw together. We spent a lot of time speaking with parents, community members, teachers, administrators. And so it's the plan we agreed to. It's the plan that we spent a lot of time developing. And so it's served us well most of this year. So,
President Cacioppo, Trustee Wilkie has a comment.
Yes, Trustee Wilkie.
Thank you. So I agree with everything everybody's been saying. We, like Mike just said, we worked on this plan for a long time. I appreciate all the public comments we've got. It was good to have a lot of aspects, little different aspects on everything. I think we all want the kids all back in the schools, but I just think it's too hard on everybody's routine right now. I feel for those kids, and as long as we can catch those kids that are failing, even those that are honor students that aren't performing to where they've performed before too, I want to make sure that they get caught in this net too. So, but I appreciate everybody taking the time to let us know, and all the hard work the staff's done to put this together and look at the different aspects of getting the kids back in the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Do we have, okay, Laurel.
Question, just to address Dawn's concern, because I know, I feel for those high school kids that have struggled with the hybrid, because it hasn't been as easy. Is there a way that we can allow those high schoolers, and I know the students are in opposition to coming back, quite a few of them are, but if there are those that are wanting to come back because for whatever reason, perhaps they want to, do we have the ability to open it to those who are choosing to come back 4 days a week?
Thank you for your question, Trustee Crossman. I believe the answer to that is yes. We've been able to do that successfully at Pioneer High School. It would simply be a matter of the student and the appropriate staff member at the school to get together under whatever circumstances and make that happen. With any student academic record that might be less than what we would like it to be, that's where the struggle might become more real, and the student may be asked to figure out which class is actually one that they can spend some extra time into to pass completely. But the other thing that we have going for us is with our current academic process, there are more expected there's more opportunities for students to earn credit than is the minimum to graduate. So what I'm trying to say here is a student can, with a little extra work and time at school, obtain the credits that they need to graduate. If not, we can always provide an opportunity for students to come back in a fifth year, as it were. It's not ideal, but we can do that. The high school diploma is so important for our students to be able to move forward in their chosen areas. So it may not all look exactly the same, but we do have a lot of opportunities for students to come back and pick up the coursework that they need.
Okay, I think looks to me like we've satisfied the questions of the board for the time being. Richard, unless you have anything else to add, I think at this time I'd like to open it up to public comments. And again, I would ask everybody, we're going to limit comments to 3 minutes apiece, and we're asking that you don't just repeat some of the thoughts you've already heard. We truly are looking for new ideas so that we have all the information we can possibly gather so that we as a board can make an informed decision. So we'll start with online. Do we have any folks online that wish to comment?
Angela Golick, you are unmuted. Please state your name for the record and spell it, please.
Hi, Angela Golick, ANGILAGOLIK.
Hi, Angela.
Okay. Hi, good evening. Thank you, trustees. I have just a couple quick comments, and one being, the first one I want to just talk about is I teach only seniors at Carson High. I have about 170, and hearing some of those comments read tonight by Renee, I know that a couple of my students were ones that wrote in. We had class discussion about coming back, and overwhelming majority of them are helping their families with those jobs. And so it is a concern for me that kids, as was stated by one of you, that kids could very well choose those jobs over finishing school. And so setting them up for failure here at the end of the year is quite possible if this is voted on in favor. The other thing that we do have the option for students to come in, and we are having those students who have been struggling are coming in 4 days a week and to their other classes. I have many seniors who are joining me 2 days in class for their in-seat time. And so that option's already there. And then I would finally like to add, the last point I have is having a senior daughter and her missing out on everything, including her basketball season, which just totally, I could start crying just thinking about it, but it's missed everything. And if we get into a situation like Bishop Manogue had, where we have 2,200 kids back on campus and the possibility of their prom or their graduation being taken from them, because we do know that there's a strong possibility that we're going to have both of those and both of those be in person. If that is taken away because we have exposure and an outbreak, I'm going to be very, very upset just as a teacher to see these kids' hearts broken one more time, including my own daughters. And so that's basically all I have to say, and I want you to consider that, please.
Thank you. That was exactly 3 minutes. Well done. Next comment.
Our next comment is from Bridget. Bridget, please state your name for the record and spell it, please.
Hi, my name is Bridget Pugh, BRIGETTEPUGH. I had on my list a lot of stuff you guys have already covered, the risk of infection, the jobs, the fact that students are already offered the opportunity to come back 4 days a week. I think one thing that has not quite been touched on is these guys, they have, if you've been in the classroom with these awesome, amazing, flexible, resilient students, you would also know that they're super fragile. They have like the all caps kind of anxiety right now, and asking them to absorb one more change when they're this close to making it through the weirdest year of all of our lives is, it doesn't make sense to them. I'm a teacher. I teach juniors and seniors. I have a freshman daughter at the high school as well. And they don't 100% understand why they've been asked to sacrifice all year long, and then this new change is coming at them. They also really don't believe that anything they say, like that their voices are going to make a difference, but I promised them I'd show up so that their voices were heard. I'm super impressed how many of them have emailed you. They've carried a lot of weight. Everything we've asked them to carry this year, they've carried, and their voices should weigh in, I think. They're really amazing, resilient students. We should all be really proud of them. That's all I got. Thanks for the time you're taking to consider it.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no other public comment online.
Thank you. Renee.
This comment is from Stella Thornton, who's a sophomore at Carson High, and she's writing the public comment in support of keeping the virtual Mondays until the end of the year. This year's been very hard for most of us, from changing schedules to figuring out homework and masks. Virtual Mondays have given myself and other students opportunities to ask teachers questions and catch up on work while planning for the school week ahead. Homeroom lessons have also created opportunities to learn new techniques that can be applied in many different situations. I understand why changing up the schedule from in-person school 2 days a week to 5 as an option on the table, but I would also like all of you to consider the student's perspective. Our lives, like everyone else, has had no control in the past year. We are all like fish struggling to swim up a stream, and many of us have grown increasingly tired of trying. Virtual Mondays give students a day to get our lives in order, to reorganize and keep swimming up the stream. As the school board, it is your duty to give students the best education possible, and this includes keeping virtual Mondays for the rest of the school year. Please take a moment to walk in our shoes, imagine our lives being held in your hands, and please listen to what we're trying to tell you. Virtual Mondays are the best path forward for the mental health and education of Carson City School District students for the rest of the year. This comment is from Amanda Lamp. As a mother of 3 that are in a school disagree with changing the school week to 5 days a week. I have a son who's autistic, and it's already been it's been a challenge getting him used to this. Let's just start fresh next year and not confuse the kids any more than we have. I don't mind going to 5 days a week in August, but before then it's too late. Please do not go through with making school 5 days a week for the rest of the year at this time. This comment is from Virginia Chandler. She's a 7th grade science teacher at Eagle Valley Middle School. For the last year as a middle school teacher, I've given my all to make sure my students have a high quality, rigorous education in a difficult and challenging year. I've negotiated a whole new way to teach and accommodated changing schedules as regulations change, as well as keeping my students safe and distanced. Much of this I have done without regard for my own mental health, as I truly put my students first. I sold my prep, meaning I only have 25 minutes of my day where I don't have students in my classroom. Most of the time, I'm foregone eating during the school day. That's how jam-packed my days are. My only time to plan and grade have been these Mondays, and those Mondays have been a lifesaver. So to hear that the school board is discussing yet another schedule change for the last month of school feels like I'm being steamrolled. I'm exhausted. My students are ready for summer, and that with my prep bought out, I'm looking at a hard last month of school. I also feel that this lack of consistency is wearing on students, especially my students that are high needs. With that, I would ask that you keep our schedules how they are, with Mondays being all remote learning. So much has been asked of the teachers and students due to this really strange and frustrating year, and leaving the planning day would essentially allow so many to function for these last few weeks of school. This message is from Sarah Vaccaro. I've been told that a decision has already been made and that the meeting is just a formality. But if that is not the case, and you care about public opinion, I urge the board to not open schools to students on Mondays. My reasons are as follows. First, we're talking about 4 Mondays. 4 Mondays is not enough to disrupt the schedule of the students. Second, many teachers rely on the time they get on Mondays for planning and other classroom duties. Many teachers are currently working with no prep. Having school on Mondays would make a huge difference in the time they have to plan to the detriment of the students. Third, our students have been through a lot of schedule changes this year. Asking them to endure another to only gain 4 days doesn't seem fair. And fourth, parents have also had to adjust, and this is yet another change to their schedule. I'm in support of things going back to normal and making steps in that direction. At this point in the school year, I feel it's too late. I do hope that schools will be open with no restrictions, including not wearing masks next year, as they would be in the best interest of students. This comment is from Miss Jen Allen, who's a 3rd grade teacher at Mark Twain Elementary. Miss Allen, I am a high flex 3rd grade teacher at Mark Twain. I'm writing to ask the board to consider keeping our current Monday schedule for the rest of the school year. There are many advantages to us to remain on this schedule. First, my full remote students receive services and Zoom with their specials teachers. If Mondays are taken away, they will not have their Zoom sessions. My students need these interactions. Secondly, IEPs, 504, parent meetings, professional training, staff meetings, effective grade level planning, and vertical alignment planning among several grade levels happen on Mondays. Placing these meetings on Mondays allow teachers to teach uninterrupted Tuesday through Friday. Thirdly, there are only 4 Mondays left in the school year. It makes no sense to make changes once again for 4 Mondays. The schedule will need to change once again with early release days, The schedule will need to change once again with early release days which interrupts teaching. The district and board have made teachers, staff, parents, and students change schedules many times. We have done this without complaining. Please do not ask teachers, parents, staff, and students to change our schedules with only 4 Mondays. In conclusion, Mondays are invaluable. To dedicate one day for all our meetings, conferences, interventions, and planning allow teachers to focus on teaching their students without disruptions and distractions. This comment is from Marcus Zerat. Why go back to school full-time when we only have 1 month left? Pretty pointless to even think about making this decision, in my opinion. And this comment is from Mrs. Jessica Daniels, the principal at Carson Montessori. I need you to know that Carson Montessori has planned events for all of the Mondays from now to the end of the school year. Currently, the remainder of our Mondays have been designated so that our virtual students have an opportunity to return to site and interact with staff and a limited number of classmates. This gives full remote students the opportunity to experience synchronistic learning adventures in the same face-to-face way the in-seat students are experiencing them. These students also are coming back on site to take assessments, including the SBAC and the MAPS, for grade level parent meetings for next school year schedule, and special events like Poetry Cafe. It would mean that we would need to readjust our entire schedule, and we have worked to keep the end of the year as normal as we can and maintain the joy of learning for all students. While we work to always follow the schedule of the Carson City School District, should you decide to reopen 5 days a week, I'm not sure we can follow you. We appreciate that you always give the opportunity to be heard and are grateful for the hard work of the board and all staff within the district. We are so proud to have you as our sponsor. Mr. Casiopo, that's all I have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Did we have any other comments? Remote?
Seeing no other online comments?
Okay, well, I appreciate the fact that we've been able to hear public comment. I did want to clarify a couple of things, if I may, because I've heard this a couple of
Joe,
times.
Did you want to check if anybody in the audience that physically wants to make comments?
Yeah, I'm sorry, good point. The people I can see, I actually decided not to address, right? Yes, please, if anyone in the audience has comments, come up to the podium. Are you sure?
I had a bunch of comments, but they've been addressed.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? Okay. I just wanted to mention that a couple of people had mentioned that, and one woman was here earlier and left, that that people can't come in person and make public comment. And I want to make it clear, because I went back and checked some of our agendas. There was a time when we were not accepting in-person comments because of the COVID restrictions. You know, the governor had mandates that we had to follow. But I just want to point out to folks that our agendas clearly state in the first paragraph and also in the first sentence of the public comment that while we may encourage remote comments, there's nothing restricting anybody to show up in person. And in fact, the first sentence for public comments in our write-up says, comments will be accepted in person, subject to the governor's emergency directives, through telephonic participation or through virtual participation via email. So I just wanted to make that clear that we're by no means restricting in-person public comment. It is allowed. And I apologize if anybody didn't get that from the agenda, but I think it's pretty clear. That being said, it's back to the board. Do we have any more discussion? Don?
I like Laurel's thoughts. Is that something reasonable that we could even have a motion that we could bring back the kids 4 days a week in the high school on a voluntary basis? If you want to keep the 2 days, you can. If you want to come back 4 days, you're welcome. Is that something reasonable to this board and to the administration?
Trustee Creaney, I think that's unreasonable, but I'd want to make sure that parents understand that if that occurs, when a student right now chooses to come back 4 days a week, they are sitting through the same lesson 2 times in a row. Because you have to realize that they're broken into cohorts now. So cohort 1 comes on a Monday, or a Tuesday, excuse me. Cohort 2 comes on the Wednesday.
Right.
If someone for cohort 2 decides to come on the Tuesday, they're getting the same lesson they're going to get on Wednesday. So they sit through the same lesson twice. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're a student who needs to hear the lesson more than once. But they're also still then required to do their work that they would be doing remotely at home. So that's just something for people to understand. There is the teacher cannot have 2 separate lessons going on in person actively at the same time. That being said, a student who chooses to come in 4 days a week could sit in the back of the classroom or, towards the side of the classroom with their Chromebook, with some earbuds in. They could be doing their virtual work in that classroom while the teacher is teaching the other students, and then have access to the teacher. We can accommodate that, and that's what that's been looking like so far. Right? I'm a student who needs to experience that trig lesson twice in a row because the first time I struggled a little bit. Let me go a second time and hear it again. We can absolutely accommodate that. But I just don't want people to think that you're going to have a teacher then teaching what would be at home lesson at the exact same time that they're teaching the now in-seat lesson, because that's not how that kind of works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess that was my misunderstanding. I think that's happening some of the time. I know my son has some AP classes, and they're not doing the lessons. They're doing different lessons each day.
So you would be correct there. In that is called a high flex model. And some of our teachers have chosen to go on the high flex model. And that's probably what you're hearing, some of the comments. That typically is happening more so in honors or AP level courses, because that's really a college model. And that is where half the kids are sitting at home, half the kids are in person, but the same as lesson is going on, whether you're at home or in person. The next day you come, the kids will flip-flop, and it is a whole nother lesson. Right. But that is a very rare instance in our district. And again, that's called a high flex. In most cases, for your normal level classes, it is a remote lesson at home and an in-person lesson. So it's 2 different lessons. And again, really what's happened with the high flex is in the AP, and that's because they did not have enough time to cover their curriculum without being able to be that hands-on with students in order to prep for them for those AP tests. So that's where you see that happening more.
And that's where the struggle is. Not only my son, but the other kids, they've missed that day. They've missed that day, and it would be nice if those kids were allowed to come in, at least for this last month.
Right, and that is exactly what the staff as I think you heard Mrs. Golick say, the staff at Carson High School and the whole Carson High School student or a teacher faculty has been highly encouraged by the principal to really work with those struggling students to say, yes, come in. We want you to come in, even though it's going to be 2 days of the same lesson. We still want you to be here. You can work independently in the classroom on what would be your remote materials, but at least you're sitting here in front of me. And if you have questions, then you have access to me as a teacher. So that's kind of what we're working on. And we can ask, of course, Principal Chambers and his staff to even make that more well-known to the student body and to families who have children who are struggling, to encourage them to take that opportunity to come in. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is just high levels of absenteeism, even on in-person days. And so that's just the reality of what we're challenged with right now. Truly and honestly, the students who are coming to school and attending their classes when they're scheduled to and doing their work at home, they're typically doing very well, considering. But the high level of absenteeism is a challenge, and that's something that we're going to have to continue to tackle even as we move into next year. And that is getting our students and our families used to that full-time commitment to school. Like I said, we know that it's important. Our teachers are a big impact, a huge impact in terms of student success. It's not the same learning at home. Listening to a lesson or watching a teacher lesson without having that interaction just is not as successful in meeting the needs of students. So I think that the all of it sounds wonderful about being able to invite students back, but that's truly not the crux of the challenges that we have right now. If you ask our sites, our principals and our teachers, the students who are struggling are students who are not even coming to school and engaging in their in-person days. That's really our challenge.
And it sounds like to me, anybody on the board can make whatever motion they want. But it sounds like that opportunity for students exists there. So personally, I don't know that it needs to be part of a motion, but I know, Mike, you had some input, so I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was just going to actually move that we remain on the hybrid schedule as implemented through the end of the school year.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by trustee Walker, second by trustee Varner. Do we have any board discussion?
Just some clarification on the motion, because the elementary schools, pre-K through 8 are not really on the hybrid anymore. They're still on the schedule of 4 days a week, but I don't know that we're calling it a hybrid. So just for clarification of the motion.
So I'll amend that then. I move that we remain on the schedule as implemented currently through the end of the school year.
Okay, so we have an amended motion.
I'll second the amended motion.
Trustee Varner seconds. Any additional board discussion? Okay, do we have any additional, should I call for additional? Okay, never mind. It is back to the board. I apologize. So I'm going to go ahead and call the motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have one abstaining, the rest 4? Okay, board, thank you very much. I want to thank everybody, including the public, the students, the parents, the teachers and staff. It's very hard sometimes to put yourself out there and express your concerns, and I'm especially proud of our students for taking the time to contact us. I think when I was a student, I don't know that I would have ever, I'm not even sure I knew there was a school board, but it's fantastic that our students took the time to let us know how they're feeling. And I hope those people out there who felt that this was a done deal maybe have a little more faith in our system, if you will. I know these are challenging times, but everybody's voice does make a difference, especially here in Carson City at the Carson City School District. We really value everybody's input, and we want people to continue to be involved in the process. So thank you to everybody. So we're going to move on to, well, that does it for us. We're going to move on to adjournment. Thank you, everybody. Excuse me?
Goodbye.
I missed what you said.